What's going on, workforce? Brian here.
Chris here.
And good morning to everybody. We thought this would be a really good time to sit down as we were less than 2 weeks away from patch 5.3 and try to answer the question with as much detail as possible. Is now the time to return to Final Fantasy XIV, or is there some better option for you in the future? So we're going to have, this is going to be a broad conversation. We get this question a lot from people who are either interested in coming back now or who are maybe waiting for a certain feature or certain content drop to come down to the game. Chris, why don't we kick it off? Is now the best time to return for Final Fantasy XIV? And if so, who would you tailor that return for?
I think so. You texted me about this video idea yesterday, and as I thought about it, I realized there's kind of three groups of people. There's the hardcore players who, debatably, many of them haven't taken a break, and they're going to say that in the comments below. It's all you should play. You should be playing right now.
They like jump in like once or twice a week, even if they're on a break. It's
right.
like yeah.
Right. And hardcore doesn't necessarily mean difficulty of content. In 14, those are two almost unrelated things. It's just players who are going to clear a lot of things. They put a lot of time into the game. They never really take breaks. And when they do, the sooner they can get back, the better. There's the more casual players. Many of these people play only a couple times at expansion. They come back and they knock out huge chunks of story. It's just a single player game to check in on. They pay 1 month at a time. And they're really waiting for something spectacular. Otherwise, they're going to come back at the end of the expansion or the beginning of an expansion. Otherwise, why would they play in the middle? So that's a question for 5.3. And the last group is somebody who's played casually, and what stopped them is that either the new player experience wasn't good for them, so like they've tried a couple times and they've never made it to current content, or they really want to play with friends and they can't get friends over that curve. And I think 5.3 uniquely addresses that group of people. Normally, we don't have anything to say to that group of people, and good luck.
Yeah, it really pains me.
Uniquely targets them.
It really pains me because it's always like, it gets better. Like in any game, when you have to sit here and the pitch is, it gets better. It's such a hard sale because it does. Like it factually gets better. Like the people who they're like, I'm thinking of quitting. I'm about to quit. Wait a minute. This is getting good. Holy crap. This is the best game I've ever played. Whether that's like you to a T or, just, at different degrees in that regards. So now at a minimum, your point is that with the free trial, if this is like beyond returning, this would be a great place to start because you can play all the way up through Heaven's Word, which is
where it gets good.
Yeah, it's like
good stuff.
For me, Heaven's Word, it was just so profound. I think it hurt Stormblood for me personally because I had such a great experience, and then Stormblood lacked dragons.
If you just like games or like MMOs, there's a lot to enjoy in the first 35 levels, so the old free trial would have been fun. But the fact that you didn't even make it to ARR endgame meant that if you'd played any other MMO, so combat systems don't suddenly and wildly excite you. I mean, you talk about playing games with your daughter, and like just the fact that people make games is still very awesome to her. There's not bad games.
Yeah.
Everything you play is like, oh my gosh, did you see they put a rabbit in this game? Like she just loves everything. And for those of us that have been around games long enough to be jaded when we see something we've already seen 1,000 times, the first 35 levels of this game don't do anything that any other MMO doesn't do. It's not any different than Guild Wars, WoW, ESO. They all have that first kind of intro experience. So them squishing ARR and then giving you a free trial that gets you past that, where you can start to see where this game truly becomes unique, see how the class system plays out, see how story really shapes out.
Well, you also get two tiers. Like there's like what I've always kind of thought of tiers in Final Fantasy XIV, for you guys don't know. 50's a tier, 60's a tier, 70's a tier, now 80's a tier. And that's actually where a ton of extra content, just like you're like, hey, here's what it is. And then we're like, oh, did you like dungeons? We've got 30. Do you like, raids? Here's the raids. Do you like, you can do them solo, you can do them synced, you can really kind of like tailor it to the way that you want to play. And so there's these different tiers in which a ton of content. That's why our always advice was like, just get to 50, just get through ARR, and all of a sudden you see all the trials and you see the raids and you get Crystal Tower and things like that. And just to give yourself some diversity as opposed to the single player questing
you didn't get your whole rotation as it was originally intended until you're at the original level cap.
It's not the intention of this video, but I really wish they would remove that syncing of your skills. as I've been playing and leveling jobs, I find like I'm not actually practicing a good rotation, and going from a
Right.
leveling sync to a non-level sync, I'm like I have to
It does make it
rethink
interesting when you go back and consider like old difficulty stuff.
Yeah.
So the fact that the original most difficult contents from each expansion stay the same, and the fact that if you go play a dungeon, there aren't people who just come in and mop things up because some new skill isn't balanced right, other than red mages. God, they tear up low level content. But you know, the vast majority of classes, when you go in there, you do experience it as it was, so it feels like an act of preservation. But I do agree with you, it comes at the cost of not really entrenching you in the current rotation. So back to the top. We have three groups of people. So for the people who don't really want to take breaks from this game, if they are on a break right now, they're just looking for lots of content because it's been a long time since patch 5.2. This is an enormous patch. 0.3s in general are great for this group of people because we just get a lot of content. It's where the game really hits its stride. They've usually finished all the thoughts from the story. At this point, this is when they start adding quality of life historically. So we're seeing like some UI changes. So it just is there to make the game more palatable for huge amounts of time. We're getting large scale, long run content with 5.1 and the half patch, right? 5.5.
Yeah, 5.35.
5.35.
Yeah, I get it.
There it is.
Oh yeah.
So 5.31 and 5.35, we're getting two enormous time sinks. We're getting the most story with the most voice acting in any patch ever for the actual main patch itself. So you've got huge amounts of content. August 11th, 3 weeks, 6 weeks. Huge amounts of content. So that group should be satisfied. We don't have anything immensely difficult in there, but that's not usually the 14 crowd. We do have difficult things in this game, but like that's not what the game is centered on. The second group of people who just come back when it's really exceptional, this is the wrap up of the Shadowbringer story. This is a moving forward of some of our side stories. We have a near raid in here. We have another step in Ishgard coming this patch. Our relic is going to finally move into its multiplayer state in its zone and really give you a feel for what all this tone has been setting up for. This is a big patch. And if you're just trying to blast through this at the end of Shadowbringers, this patch is going to feel like a lot when you get to this point in progression. So I would kind of chip away at this now and then come back at the end. So I think it's good for that group. And then the last group with the free trial, everything we just talked about. So like, I don't see a single player that 5.3 is not good for. But when to come back is the question. Like when you asked me, because you've been taking a break, when to come back, and currently what's on the table, I don't see any reason to rush back before 5.31, because everything up until then is single player, do at your own pace. So if that stuff takes you 2 weeks, you have 3 weeks until 5.31. You don't even have to be here on August 11th. You can come on August 17th. It makes no difference. Except for the fact that we have a new
the story's going to change. Well, yeah, if you want to farm the new trial and talk about it.
If you want to be there on day one when everybody's kind of
talking about it
and not like, I can't believe you don't have this strat memorized.
Yeah, well, you'll still might get some of that on day one. The thing about day one though, like if we were sitting here saying August 11th, I'm going. Well, not just day one trial, but it's so great to see waves of players, especially in this case. So my argument for the players that 5.3 is a great time to return, it's going to be based off of the fact that it has been such a huge gap between this and the last patch. People are hungry for this game. People are just waiting for not just what is like gameplay, not as just, for the trial, not just for the content, but they're waiting for that story. So that it's like, if we've been waiting for the last season of our greatest show ever, and it's like, oh man, it got delayed a year. And then you're just like, I can't wait to watch it so then we can talk about it, because there's questions that are out there and remaining. So if you've been following up with the story, this is absolutely the time to return so you can be a part of that conversation. You could be a part of it, like, on the 17th or in September. But also, Final Fantasy XIV doesn't exist in a bubble. In September, we know, like, Avengers is launching, and that's starting to look like I might regret this statement later, but that's starting to look like a really decent game, and I'm hoping that it's good. It's like with any looter.
I'm not as optimistic with any movie-based game. I'm not saying they don't have successes, but they are the exception, not the rule.
And it's like, I'm just saying, like, there's a ton of really big and exciting games that'll be following. Obviously, as we get into the fall season, especially for things that got delayed out of the spring and more. So there's a lot of exciting things to kind of take your time. So if there's nothing really like dominating your schedule in August, it's going to be a great time to get caught up, have that story done, because otherwise, like, these are the patches that tend to be like, hey guys, that what you're about to experience is a long cutscene. You might want to set a time aside so that this cutscene can play out.
Yep.
Go for it and conquer. Get a snack,
glasses of water,
get some popcorn, and get ready, because it's not just a game; it's also a movie with 5.3, and we kind of seem to have that confirmed now for other players, because it's typically like what we see, and especially we see this a lot in the comments. Usually, it's around 5.4 or 5.5 that you see the biggest return in the game from players, where they'll play from either 5.4 or 5.5 all the way up through like 5.0, 6.0, and 6.1. And what that is those are the gamers who are really about like the story, the narrative. They enjoy the raids, but what they do is that they come back, they get caught up on all the content. They go right into the expansion. They play the expansion, and then they go and say, "We'll see you in 2 years." And so for if you're that kind of player and you're evaluating, this could be a really good time for you to return. Or that still might play out true, where 5.4 or 5.5 is your best bet. What's going to be different this time around is that with 5.3.5, with the front lines, that's also acting as our deep dungeon, where we usually got deep dungeon in the 5.3. The Bozja front. Oh, sorry, yeah, it's the southern front. Bozja southern front. Or yeah, I get
new relic.
Yes. You can also use that for leveling content. And so as a part of that, like, there's definitely a lot that this one's bringing in terms of getting gamers caught up, getting your classes leveled. So if you ever wanted to level up other classes and you haven't yet, that are 71 and higher, you can partake in that in sometime at the end of September or early October. So it should be a really good time to dive back in at that point. And then finally, though, 5.5 is going to have the next ultimate. 5.5 is going to have, obviously, the build up to the expansion. And I think that's going to be something very exciting. I think they've got some big surprises in store for us. But I love that they moved Ultimate to 5.5, because right now, yes, the raiding community is hurting. Right now, Ultimate Raiders are wanting their next challenge. They're wanting that thing, which is so exciting to watch. But having that in the build up to 6.0, that's going to drive Twitch numbers.
Especially with lack of fan fest.
Yeah, especially with that. But that's also going to drive so much engagement in terms of Twitch and content and like that's not anything I haven't yet tackled a single ultimate, but that's something that it does.
I like watching them.
I love watching them. It does get interesting. It does draw people back. So if you're looking for more of that social aspect, like, hey, when do the most players return to this game? They'll be here August 11th. They will also be here sometime whenever patch 5.5 drops, which we assume is sometime in the spring. I would guess maybe March.
That's a good ballpark. Yeah. So then the question becomes, so in my opinion, everybody should play on August 11th. I don't always feel that way about patches. I think I told you with like the last half patch with 5.25, there wasn't anything in there that couldn't technically wait.
I waited.
Doing it the day of would be awesome, but if you're, because there's people, but if you're not going to do it that day, then it's the same single player experience anytime between then and 5.35. Like that, all of that stuff is solo. Do it at your own pace. There's no reason to rush it. So if you're busy that week, do it the next week. Patch day's fun, but that's not easy. That doesn't always fit. Not everybody's going to think, oh man, August 11th, that really works with my schedule. So I would say, is there a reason to come back early? And it really depends on where you left things. If you're on a break now, you do want to have all of your story cleared prior to the August 11th. So however much time you have missing in that, prior to 5.31, you want to have a crafter or gatherer at cap. At this point, we will have beast tribes for both. So you have plenty of time if you want to do that on the 11th, but that's a lot to do in 3 weeks if you're also clearing all that story and you don't play a lot every week. So I would get in and maybe just start doing a little, like maybe just level once a day or just level twice a day. Just start touching it and getting a feel for it. If you want to be in that trial on day one and you don't want to be yelled at, getting in a day or two early and running a roulette just to kind of knock the dust off so that your very first run is not brand new content. I've done it. I've put out guides where that's the first group content I've run in weeks. But I get comments down below that's like, man, that's a garbage tank. This is like my first 20 minutes of content in sometimes months. Sometimes we've just been doing crafting and like PvP and stuff, and like my rotation is just I'm like, you're like, oh man, you got to pop this. I was like, I don't remember what key that's bound to.
Oh, you
I have not
keyboard
used
players.
I have not used that skill in months. So it'd be good to knock the dust off from personal experience. But other than that, like, I don't see any reason to rush back prior to the 11th if you're busy. Otherwise, hop back in now, start getting the feel for things. The big ones are for 5.31 and 5.35. You need to have a lot clear for those. 5.31, you need to be captain or crafter or gatherer. 5.35, you have to have cleared Orban Monastery to make way for all of the single player relic quests, and you need to have all of that clear to get into the resistance that's going to drop on day one. And the early stages of this relic are going to be a lot of people doing this big group content. It's going to trigger a lot of these special phases, these special fates. It's going to trigger a lot of these random people get into these 24/48s. It's going to be an exciting time to be in that content. And if you don't want to be a part of it, that's great. But if you do want to be a part of it, it would be a bummer to be like, I logged in, I don't want to miss it. And it's like, okay, cool. Now go do your 3 hours of single player content.
Yeah. Exactly. So guys, plan accordingly and let us know if you have any questions. If you're on the fence about returning, is there something we can do to help make that transition back into the game easier? Sound off in the comments below. That's one of the things that we like to do, especially in terms of guides and ways that we can help answer and just kind of make it easier to get back into this game if you've been away for any period of time. I know that, it's always kind of fun when I see somebody's like, I haven't played since Heavensward. All right, what's changed? Okay, buddy. Like, so much. Let's dive in. Do you remember Protect? Yeah, we all miss it. But it's coming back in a way with the Motion Southern Front. So it's like those lost actions should be pretty cool to see and experience, and I can't wait to go hands-on with it, especially because I did miss the Eureka train. So I'm very excited about what they've kind of presented.
It's fun.
Yeah, so anyway, guys, I'm back. I've been playing. I've been working, finishing up Black Mage, and I'm going to be diving into Warrior after that. So pay attention to the channel for some polls. Chris, you got anything that you want to share before we wrap up this video?
No, I mean, I think that's it. I'm looking forward to kind of spending more time in 14. I mean, I've enjoyed a lot of other games, but it's like a return home after a very long gap in the game. 5.3 looks like an incredible patch. Go watch the trailer, guys.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, anyway, guys, for Work to Game, my name's Brian.
My name's Chris.
Thanks so much for watching. We'll see you next time.
Take care.